All right, well, I'm going to do a quick little introduction because in the military we had this thing called the BLUF, B-L-U-F, and that stands for bottom line up front. So this video is going to be about me taking my Solar Plus system on my Alliance Paradigm, which is a 3,000 watt inverter and a 60 amp Renogy MPPT solar charge controller, 3 lithium batteries, and 3 solar panels. My solar charge controller burnt up, and so I'm going to do a video on the installation of a replacement solar charge controller. I went with a Victron 15070, and so the video is all about installing that solar charge controller. But the bottom line up front is check your wiring. Always, always, always check your wiring. And in an RV, if you're moving around the country full time, I think those wires probably need to be checked at least weekly, if not every move. And the reason why I say that is you're going to find out in the video what happened. But as I'm doing the install of the solar charge controller, I had a positive side of the solar wire that runs to the battery. The connector on that wire was really, really loose. And so when I first reached out to Alliance about getting a new solar charge controller and switching over to a Victron product, one of the things that they had said was, well, before you start installing, you really got to figure out what happened and why. And so I ordered the new product, but I didn't know what had happened or why until I started putting all the components in. And so I believe what happened is, so this is going from the solar charge controller down to the battery, which would then charge the 3 batteries. That connector was super loose, and that connector was loose, moving around, shorting out probably, which then created a lot of heat, which then was transferred to the solar charge controller and then melted that. So I believe that's what happened. But anyways, check your wiring, and recheck your wiring. Anyways, I hope you like this video. This is one of my longer ones, but there's a lot of components to this, and hope you like it. Well, hello there. Welcome to Hanging with the Hags. Well, today Vicki and I made it to North Carolina. So after spending a couple of weeks up in the Virginia area, we've made it down to North Carolina, and we are currently at Cherry Point, which is a Marine Corps base, and we are in a really, really nice RV park. Pelican Point is what this is called. Full hookups, of course, but huge cement pads, picnic tables, all kinds of space. And so today we're doing a repair. And we've been pretty fortunate with our rig to not really have too many issues as we've been traveling. But this late issue happened probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I noticed that the solar charge, or the solar panels, weren't really charging the batteries very effectively. And so I did some looking around, and up until that point, I didn't really see anything too out of place other than just wasn't getting good solar charge. And ended up doing some looking around, and let me show you what I found. So this is my solar charge controller. This is a Renogy MPPT. This is what comes standard with the Solar Plus package on an Alliance fifth wheel in 2023. Alliance has since switched all of their solar products over to Victron, which is from what I'm told, is a far superior system. But this is the original one that came with it, and as you can see right here, So that melted piece there was to the positive side of the battery. So these two PVs here, this is positive coming in from the solar panels, and then this is my battery positive and battery negative. And as you can see, that is completely melted. And again, like I said, I didn't really notice anything. I didn't smell it being hot or smell plastic melting or nothing. I just noticed that the solar wasn't really charging very well. And so after doing some looking around, there's actually a plate that would go on here, so you wouldn't even see it, right? So once I took this off, I was like, uh-oh, yeah, we got a problem. So anyways, I called Alliance, or I actually emailed them, and of course this is a 2023 install, not under warranty. But I talked to one of their techs there, Steve Jankovitz, and he was like, okay, well, if you're looking to get away from Renogy, go to Victron. And so he had recommended this product. It's a MPP 15070, which I'm not changing anything on my solar setup. So I got the 3 solar panels on the roof, 320 watts each, and then I got 3 Renogy lithium batteries. And so he had recommended this product if I'm going to stay with the current setup. So after a little trial and tribulation with Amazon, I finally got the product shipped in. Couple of minor differences is, one is this requires a ground, which is right there. And so what I ended up doing is I had to go get some 6-gauge wire. So 6-gauge wire, I got this piece here, is going to go onto that connection, and then this other end that I made is going to go to the negative battery bus bar and provide a ground for this. And then the second thing is I bought this, but I also needed a way to monitor things because this doesn't have any type of display. And so there was this VE Direct Bluetooth product. So this will just plug in right there, and then I'll be able to monitor the system via Bluetooth. And I'll probably just use that for a while. Now with the Renogy system, I did buy the BT1 connector, which is right here. This is what enables you to get Bluetooth on your Renogy product. This did not come with the RV. I did buy that. But then, of course, this does have a battery monitor inside the RV. And so I got to figure out if I'm going to want to go ahead and replace the inside display or just use the Bluetooth. But at least for now, I'm just going to use the Bluetooth. Other than that, the only other change was the fuse. So you can see here, this is a bus fuse. This is a 58 volt, 80 amp. On the Renogy previously, I was running 60 amp fuses on there. And based on the guidance in the manual for the new charge controller, they're recommending a 80 amp fuse. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch that out as well. Other than that, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so now we're down here where all the batteries are in the front puka on this 2023 Alliance Paradigm 382 RK. And again, just to remind you, this came factory with the Solar Plus option, and with that you get the 3000 watt inverter, you get the charge controller, which is burnt up, and then the 3 lithium batteries. And so this should be relatively straightforward. I'm going to mount the charge controller up here, and then as far as wiring goes for that, obviously I'm going to start with this negative, or this ground wire. I'm going to take this ground wire and go back here to where the 3 batteries are all connected grounds. So that'll start, and then I will do the positive and negative to the battery, which are these two wires, which are live wires. That's why they're taped. And then that should give us power to the charge controller. Then I'm going to plug in this, which is the Bluetooth controller. Then I can go and finish down. I downloaded the app, but I need to get the settings for this installed on the app so that I can change whatever factory settings are this for my setup. So verifying that it's a 12 volt, because this is, you could charge multiple different voltage on there. So 12 volt and then 300 amp hour battery bank. So once I make sure that that's good on the settings, then I can go ahead and plug in the solar wires. These are taped, but I went ahead and pulled the fuses up on the roof as well. So I'll plug these in and then I'll go up on the roof and put the fuses back in and see if everything's working. Of special note though, if you have a similar RV, we got some sounds of freedom going on in the background as we're on a military base right now in North Carolina. But if you do have this RV, that fuse block there, or bus bar I guess it would be called, would have this cover on it. And so if you have a checklist of things that you're doing periodically, I would definitely pull this off monthly and verify that each one of these wires are super tight onto this bus bar. And the reason why I say that is we had some issues with our refrigerator way back in the day. And what it ended up being is that the positive wire to the refrigerator was really loose and was moving around and was causing my refrigerator to have these error codes. And so after a whole lot of troubleshooting at the refrigerator, I ended up chasing wires down and found a really loose wire on there. Once I tightened that up, it hasn't been an issue since, but I do come back periodically and verify that those are all super tight. So anyways, all right, we're gonna go ahead and continue on. All right, so it's time to go ahead and change the fuse on this. So again, this was the original fuse, 60 amp. And now actually thinking back, when I originally got the RV from the factory, I believe that they had a 40 amp fuse in there. And one of my first issues that I had with the solar was that fuse had popped and I had no power. And so it took me a while. I was on with Renogy's help support and ended up figuring out that this fuse was bad, but also that this fuse was underpowered. So they had a 40 amp fuse in there. And I think when you go from the standard install with the one battery and you get the Solar Plus, this fuse should have been upgraded to 60 amp and it wasn't. But of course now we are upgrading to an 80 amp fuse on here. The other thing is, so this wire is going to go on the other side of that fuse, but I was stripping back this end. This was the end that was in the solar charge controller that was all charred. So I cut that wire off to make sure that it was all still good, and it looks good to me. But what I did notice is on this side, so this would be the side that would be connected right there, this was really loose. So I'm not talking about the plastic piece, but the connector itself was flopping around a little bit. It wasn't even tight on the wire. So now I'm thinking that could have been the culprit that actually caused the charge controller to fail. If this connector was loose and flopping around, creating a whole lot more voltage than was needed, then it would stand to reason that the other side would melt the casing like it did. So anyways, so yeah, we got the charge controller installed. That was pretty easy, just 4 screws. And then we're gonna go ahead and continue on. Alrighty, well, here's what we got so far. So we got the solar charge controller is mounted right there. We got the Bluetooth monitor up top. Bluetooth is connected in there. We got our negative wire comes down to where all the negative battery terminals come to here. We have this going to positive there. This negative comes to this negative, the negative side of the shunt. And then we have both solar wires are now plugged in, positive and negative, coming from the roof. And then really the last step at this point, I wanted to go ahead and check some voltage on some things and check some fuses. So these are the 3 fuses that are from up top. And these are 15 amp fuses, so I just wanted to do a quick continuity test on these, just to make sure that the fuses are good. So all 3 of those are good. And then wanted to do, just because I've been monkeying around with all of this power, I did want to just make sure that we had good voltage. So if I take one of these leads and I put them on the positive side of the battery, this is going to be impossible to do with holding the phone. So anyways, I'm checking some DC voltage. So if I go negative side to positive side, I got 13.6 volts. Go to the next battery, 13.6 volts. Next battery, 13.6 volts. So what that tells me is that my batteries are all being charged equally, which is good. And then I want to just make sure that we got good power on the other side of these leads down here. These is what go to the inverter. So make sure that we got good power here. This is coming off the battery, 13.6. And then I got a 300 amp fuse going to the inverter. So on the other side of the fuse, I got 13.5. And then this is where it's powering the solar charge controller. Other side of the 80 amp fuse that we just put in. And we got power there. I got 13.4. So all of the changes that we did, adding the new 80 amp fuse there, taking apart the negative there, and then just making sure all of the wires are all tightened down. Everything looks good. So we're gonna go ahead and go up top and install these fuses. Alrighty, well, now we're up on the roof and it's time to put in these 15 amp fuses into our solar lines. And so how this works here is you're going to disconnect. This is where the fuse is held. You're going to disconnect this end. It's got 2 prongs you push in, pop that off. And then now what you're going to do is you're going to unscrew this end. This is actually where the fuse is held. And then you're going to put the fuse in. You're going to twist that in. And then you're just going to pop these connectors back in. That's it, just like that. So now I'm gonna go do 2 more and then we'll check it out. As you can see, it was raining the last half an hour, so I waited to come up on the roof. But we do have a bit of cloud cover, so once we get these fuses in, it should be powering the system. we can check on some last minute settings and then make sure it's all working. Okay, we'll be back. All right, so I made it off the roof and now I'm logging into the Bluetooth device, and what this screen shows you is there's two different devices. There's the solar charge controller on the top, and then there's the VE Direct dongle that's below. So what this tells me is that the smart solar MPPT actually had a Bluetooth monitoring in the system, where I was led to believe that it didn't. That's the reason why I bought the VE dongle. It wasn't really that expensive, but it looks like I can monitor both using the MPPT and the dongle. Alrighty, so now I've logged into the device, and what this is showing you is that I'm getting 102 watts of solar produced in my 3 panels. The voltage that it's producing is 32.29 volts, and an amp of 3.2 going to the batteries, and then my battery level is currently at a 13.1 volts. So this is telling me that my solar is working, and again, we're late in the day, the sun is kind of going down, that's why we're not getting the best solar. But what this does tell me is that everything looks to be working just fine. All right, well, that's a wrap up on that one. It looks like everything is working really good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, a little bit longer than most of my videos, and I don't really get into much of the technical aspect of the RV because we really haven't had a lot of issues with this RV, but this is one that certainly needed to get done, and after some delays with Amazon, I finally got the charge controller and got it installed, and looks like everything is working great. So again, thanks for watching, and share, like, and subscribe, and if you like this content, just check back weekly. I'm not on a schedule or anything. I just do videos as needed. But we're currently in North Carolina, heading down to Key West. So over the course of the next 45 days or so, we'll be hanging out in the Carolinas. Thanks for watching. Yabba dabba doo. We'll be at a campsite near you.